So what does the Trump team think of all of this? Let's bring in now Liz Harrington. She's a spokesperson for former President Trump and joins us now. Liz, thanks for being here. So I think you probably heard off the top there some of the comments, basically Mike Pence saying because of January 6th, Donald Trump isn't fit to be president. Chris Christie saying, again, essentially the argument that he made was Trump's a bad person or doesn't have the character qualities to be president once again. How do you respond to those two attacks within the last couple of days?
Well, I think what's most important is what do the voters think? And clearly the voters want President Trump to be our nominee. They want President Trump back in the White House to bring peace and prosperity like he had under his historic first term. And really, they're tired. The voters are tired of hypocritical establishment politicians who go where the wind blows and who are only in it for themselves or own personal ambition. I mean, no one has done more to defend the Constitution than President Trump. Name
names there, Liz. Who are you talking about? Who are you referring to?
This whole field is full of self-serving political hacks, quite frankly, that the voters see through. President Trump doesn't need this job. He never did. He and his family and anyone who's ever worked for him has gone through hell just because he has stepped up and fought for the American people. That's why they're doing all of these sham investigations, this election interference. They're trying to stop the one man who's actually effective, who's not just words and sound bites and talking points, but who actually takes it to the corrupt political class and delivers for the people of this country.
I want to get to the investigations in a second, but first, Mike Pence, the first vice president ever to run against the former running mate. Does Donald Trump take exception to Mike Pence jumping into the presidential field?
Well, President Trump always said he had a good relationship with Mike Pence until January 6th, when he's being very disingenuous in what he was asked by the people, by the way, not just President Trump, to do, which was the state legislatures wanted their votes back. They wanted to do an investigation into the enormous amount of evidence of irregularities.
Disingenuous how, though? Mike Pence says he was upholding the Constitution, as we heard there.
He wasn't upholding the Constitution, because why did they change the law afterwards with the Electoral Count Act? He had every right to send it back to the states, and he leaked his letter during President Trump's speech on January 6th to pull the rug out of, that room, to pull the rug out of the mall of the momentum of people wanting to have an investigation into 2020. And he was disingenuous about what the ask was. The ask was send it back to the states, which many members of the state legislatures were asking this to be done. Members of Congress were asking for this to be done, senators as well. So Mike Pence is just not being truthful about this.
But Mike Pence simply says, Liz, that he was upholding the Constitution and he was doing exactly what he should, right? It's
not. How is it upholding the Constitution to rubber stamp a fraudulent election? It's not upholding the Constitution. If you look at historical precedent, Thomas Jefferson sent the votes back. I mean, he actually didn't even send the votes back. He took the votes back. We've had
the argument of a fraudulent election play in the general, you
think? We've had contested elections throughout our history, and the way to follow the Constitution is to let the state legislatures decide. That's exactly what President Trump wanted to do, and Mike Pence did not fulfill his constitutional duty.
All right, I want to move on to Ron DeSantis. He's down at the southern border today, made an appearance there for the first time as a presidential candidate. Here was Ron DeSantis just the other day talking about the southern border and referring to President Trump, and I'll get your reaction on the other side. Watch.
I've heard a lot of promises about taking care of it, ensuring border security for years and years and years. And what I can pledge you to this, when I'm president, we will be the one to finally bring this issue to a conclusion.
He's basically saying Donald Trump didn't fully do the job there. What do you make of Ron DeSantis' comments?
We had the most secure border in history under President Trump, with, by the way, no help from Republicans in Congress. By sheer will, he built the wall, and all a matter of just more miles to be left finished. And what did Joe Biden do? He let it to rot in the dirt, in the desert. It's disgusting what the Biden regime has done to open up our border and give away our sovereignties. The drug trafficking, the human trafficking, All of that goes away when President Trump is back in the White House.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.